So my name is Victor Gitonga Muniu, and this is my 20 minutes video presentation on the challenges that one specific challenge that is facing modern society and a solution that I would give. So I have identified one challenge as the youth unemployment and the digital economy. So I'm going to talk about the youth unemployment and the digital economy. So first of all, I would like to talk about the youth unemployment, and basically I would say that we are very tight, and as a nation and even most of the country, many people and many students have theory, they have degrees, they have the skills that is needed on paper, but most of them do not have the practice for it. They do not have the practicality part of the what the market entails, because this is evident when you go to attachment. When I went to my attachment, I found out that the skills that you are taught in school, you need to specify. Like for example, in BBIT we are taught about many things: under development, you're taught about system analysis and design, you're taught about database and building and management and like all those things. We are taught about operation systems, hardware and software, of which is good. But when I went to the market, I was in a hospital, and I learned that the things that we are taught, one needs to understand and have a bearing on majorly one place or one activity that one needs to do. For example, in my attachment, I did a lot of networking. That was most of hands-on deck. But then we also have other parts of IT that revolve around sitting on the computer and writing a bunch of codes and getting paid for it. So I want to talk about some factors that have resulted to this youth unemployment, and I'm going to talk about the digital economy. I'm going to talk about statistics. I'm going to talk about root causes, impact on society, and I'm also going to talk about implementation strategy. How do we make actually the solution to happen? So sit tight as I start. So our education system mostly rely on theory, while many market spaces demands practical and digital skills. As a CEO who wants to deliver and who has made 10 million Kenyan shillings last year and wants to make 13 or 15 million this year, will want a person who knows what he's doing. Of course, if you are that CEO, you would understand that right now, I don't think if I'm comfortable giving someone who doesn't even understand the industry, and yet I need to scale up. Why should I risk just because of this one person? So we get that many people are left out, not because they cannot, but just because they do not have sufficient practice, or they do not have what we call hands on deck before. They are just out of college and they are expected to work like the others. So the social cause of this is that unemployment leads to increased crime rates. People without jobs would want to get money because they have rent to pay, and they have needs to meet, they have urges to satisfy. They want to buy that clothes, they want to eat that good food. Even if they can't afford it, they have that urge to do it. So they move towards criminal things that most of them end up in jails. And for the Kenyan system, we know that, but we don't negotiate when it comes to a thief. When you get a thief, people mostly ban them. So you find that many people lose their lives because the root problem was they just got out of campus or out of college or whatever they did to get a certificate. Then because they do not understand the market, they only have the theory of it, they end up going to crime rates. These are some, not all. Other people have mental issues among young, and these are young men and women. They have mental issues, depression. Someone stays at home for 2 years, They are like, okay, what am I going to do? I've just done this. Yes, I have the degree. Yes, I have this. But what am I going to do as a young person? And trust me, it has been talked about so much. So most of the things that I'm going to say are not that new, but some specifics are actually peculiar. So, unlike in the past where land was necessary and was the primary source, today data and connectivity are the resources. We have people who have gone into the online space, and just by smiling at the camera and saying hi every day consistently at exactly 8 a.m., they get paid by YouTube, they get paid by Snapchat, they get paid by, it's all about now connectivity. Your online presence is more even marketable than a person who goes to work 30 days, let's say, desk support or a secretary, and you have a podcast which pays you per views, per likes, and it's actually growing, scaling, because most of these online platforms, they don't go down, most of them they scale up. So these are other things that we need to talk about. And also, many youth lack affordable access to these tools. So when you find work, because the challenge always that I have skills, I am a web developer, I am a software developer, I can create an Android app, I can create a Mac OS, or a Linux, or talk of anything, frameworks. You can design them, you can confront APIs. That's in the technological space. But how am I going to do this? Because the first step is actually the ones that people need. Because if you do not have the first step, then how are you going to diversify, or how are you going to double down in a term in business? How are you going to double down to what actually gives you something when you have not made that first leap? So I have actually I've gone through, and I think the best things that you can do is to do what we call give a digital solution to the youth, according to me. So it is not enough to simply tell government to create jobs, as they have done and they're claiming to have done most in the online space. We must build what I call the integrated digital literacy ecosystem. It's called the IDLE. So the solution has three pillars: the curriculum overhaul, the gig economy infrastructure, and the entrepreneurship over employment. So we want to have more creators than just job seekers, because in these big countries like the United States of America and the UK, we have people who literally are going and are getting funds from investors just because they have viable solutions to problems that literally can bring money on board. Because if you provide a solution to someone, then that person will be indebted to you and pay. So most of the youth are looking for ready solutions that have been created to the current problems, the normal problems. You see, going to you are an engineer, you want to go for a job to to oversight some maybe road construction or some building, or you know to draw how the architects draw buildings, uh, the electricity flow inside the building, or even the plumbing structure inside the building, the water movement inside the building, from the toilet, from the kitchen, maybe to the bedroom, maybe to you have to draw all those things inside the a paper, so that as an engineer you go and give it to a plumber or another engineer to actually develop it by hand or on the ground, from the theory to practicalize it, sorry, to make it into being. But now the problem is we have 5,000 more, 50,000, in thousands, because every time people are graduating, they have the same skills, and we have many people who are average. Yes, we have those people who are top tier, but we also have many people who do jobs well, but they don't have that space for doing it. So people go outside the country, or people resolve to other things. border taxis, things that even they never went to school for, but just because their current skills were not appreciated by job markets. So the first pillar, curriculum overhaul. We must introduce coding and digital marketing not as electives but as core requirements from primary school. We need to move from learning to read to learning to code. Actually, we need to learn these digital skills from the primary section. We have seen this being implemented by the CBC and other initiatives in the education sector, which is good, and actually it makes a lot of sense. The pillar number 2, I'll talk about the gig economy infrastructure. The solution lies in the internet. Platforms like Upwork, Fiverr allow Africans to work for clients in Europe or Asia, talk of America. My proposal involves government subsidized digital hubs in rural areas, co-working spaces with free high-speed fiber where youth can work remotely. So we have these jobs that don't require a lot of you know a lot of you waking up, going from one door to another, of companies looking for jobs whereby even maybe there is no current space, or when the space is there they already fill because of connections and the language of that. But when you have digital hubs in rural areas, most of the Kenyan population come from rural areas, that's a fact. So you cannot go out of the rural areas and come to town unless you want a job, you want a better life, or a better life condition, or better exposure to opportunities and growth. So most people who are in rural areas, if they have digital hubs and internet connectivity, high fiber optics there, specifically high fiber optics, we find that these people will not migrate from rural areas. The rural urban migration will decrease. In fact, the rural areas will tend to grow because they will have money from working in such platforms, and then they will develop their places. They will develop their if it's farming, they will diversify. If it's butchery business, they will double down and make like 5 more butcheries. If it's retail shops and wholesale shops, they have money, so they would actually create more supermarkets. And when we have 3 or 4 youths in the village creating such things, we have other 5 who would see, okay, they have created this, so also we can create this. And that by itself creates urban centers in the rural areas indirectly, of which will grow the economy and also serve the youth problem of getting out of rural areas to come to towns so as to get jobs or better living conditions. So it will not be looking for better conditions but creating conditions. But now the thing is, the digital hubs need to be created there first. Number 3, entrepreneurship over employment. Now, we must stop teaching youth to write CVs and start teaching them to write business plans. The most important thing that I think has been overlooked is creating, is doing CVs. Actually, sorry, is not doing CVs. So, by financial independence, I'm talking about when people are young. Most of the youth in Kenya currently, because I'm talking of Kenya, don't come from these well-off families. They come from trying families, humble backgrounds. So you'll find most of the youth, they are dependent on their guardians or immediate relatives for support, even in the education sector, and support even in their lives before they grow up and actually are able to do or to fund for themselves. Now, people have not been trained to have that financial independency, but instead to have financial dependency. That's why a study has been carried out, and 90%, or if not 99%, then it's 99.9% of students in the university actually depend on their parents, outside support for rent, school fees, and shopping, food, and other clothes, money for recreation, all these things, of which is not a bad thing. But if we had a person getting into campus who understands how to make money and to create opportunities for themselves, of course not deterring him or her from chasing education, you see, this person will have a higher advantage in the job market if he has a certificate, because he already knows and has a mindset of creating jobs or creating opportunities for himself instead of looking for them. So this notion of looking for jobs, we want you to graduate so that you can look for a job, is something that also is a problem that should be solved. You're not supposed to graduate to look for a job. You're supposed to graduate to create a job, because we have large numbers of students pouring into schools and large number of them graduating. So if you have even at least a million of these students who have created a million opportunities, this will skyrocket the economy in a very smart and good way. So my solution proposes a micro grant system where university capstone projects like this portfolio are funded as startups rather than just graded as papers. So instead of having projects graded, grading projects is good, but imagine people doing projects and knowing that they have a potential of giving, of being funded for the projects as startups. For example, I have created an app called Campus Hustle Link, of which I've talked about, creating, bridging the gap between the service seekers to the service providers, that is students. A student has a barber shop. Instead of going to WhatsApp to get, or to put to status WhatsApp to get customers, he or she logs into the app, which is peer to peer. Actually, it's all about students. It's for students economy, and posts his, and he just does the profile and posts his you know work there. And because he has posted the barber shop there, a student service seeker who wants to get his hair done would go there and find them. So I think this, imagine if this is funded. Grading is good because there has been work done, so you grade it. But if we go to an extra step of funding it, funding startups rather than just grading as papers, this will even motivate most people to do solid projects. I'm not saying most people aren't doing solid projects, but these projects will get a serious traction because people know this, I can do this as a source of income. Now, the implementation part and the feasibility. I know critics might ask, is it expensive? The cost of ignoring a problem is so higher than actually the cost of dealing with it. Because if you ignore the problem, then you are shifting the burden from the government creating jobs to the government creating the environment for jobs. So like you start now complaining instead of doing it yourself. So I think phase one could be partner with tech giants like Google and Microsoft to fund the digital hubs, because these people are serious and they are big fish in the market. They will have an effect and people would get improvement in terms of resources. Number two is retrain teachers to deliver the new digital curriculum, because we have the old system whereby teachers just do it, but they do not have the digital curriculum. Even if they have that digital curriculum, it's more, can I say, old fashioned and cannot meet today's needs, because we need to move as the market moves and as the era moves. Another thing is to launch the micro grant fund. This is whereby people come and they pitch their their projects, and even if they haven't put it to the market, they get help by people who have been in the market, and they get funding. And yes, investment requires return. So if maybe you are scaling or moving towards a business worth 30 million, you have said your business is worth 30 million in 10 years, a person comes and invests, let's say 15 million, or let's say 20 million, and says he wants a stake of 10% in the business, and he wants like royalties for maybe every 50 shillings you get in perpetuity. This means that this person will invest in your business, or is just buying a hypothetical business idea, but he's funding you at the same time, and he's using his resources. Maybe they have a good social media platform. They have people who manage their social media platforms. So these people would, even there are those people who would come and loan you. They would say, let me loan you 20 million, but return it in 5 years after doing this and this and this and this. or I will I will be 50% your partner, and I'll give you the funds. And after it loads and after it brings more traction and everything, because it is a risk and reward platform, whereby yes, you have a good idea, but if it's not realistic, then the risk will be higher, and literally the person will lose money. But if it's actually something that it has been done before and these people understand, they can help you and move you towards getting money. So I think it's about creating the environment for these jobs, and that will be good. So as I conclude, I would say that in conclusion, the challenge of youth unemployment is severe, but it's not insurmountable. By bridging the gap between our education system and the digital reality of this 21st century that we are living in, we can turn our youth bulge from a burden into our greatest economic asset. The solution is not waiting for employment, the solution is innovation. Yeah, so as I present this portfolio today, I'm not just a student looking for a grade, I'm an advocate for a digital future.